And you might have to pay a little money to do that, because of course this information has cost certain people a lot. There are certain personalities within the redemption movement, like Roger Elphick, for instance, or Winston Shrout, or Jack Smith, who have spent certain amounts of time in prison because they have taken the time to explore certain avenues and they've failed, and they've gone to prison and they've come back out again and tried another avenue. And over time they've found that there are certain things that work and things that don't work, and they've paid the price to learn those lessons. As you're looking into this redemption process, you'll find a lot of disinformation about these characters, and more often than not, these characters will be made out to be criminals. They went to prison because they tried this stuff. You see, it doesn't work. This is all nonsense. It's a big scam. So don't you try it, because that's where you'll end up too. And so what I recommend you do is to go to certain sites and decide for yourself whether you think it's worth spending the money to find out this information. You might find some of the videos on Google Video. I will put a few links up here so that you can have a good look and decide for yourself. But essentially, it is going to take a lot of time, a lot of study to implement this second option. You do not want to go into this with a frivolous attitude, unless you want to share a 6 by 6 foot cell with Big Jake, who likes to play mummies and daddies. So you're registered, and a foreign situs trust is created, and your birth certificate bond is floated on the market. And it starts to accumulate money, and that money goes into this foreign situs trust. And then once you reach the age of 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever country you're in, you will sign a national insurance or a social insurance contract. And in doing that, you are handing over your rights to access that trust to the government. The foreign situs trust is subrogated, and a new trust is created, called a Sester-K trust. And that is the trust that the government access in order to fund wars and all of their other nefarious little activities. Now, I'm pretty sure that the average Joe in the government doesn't know anything about these trusts, but I'm pretty damn sure that the Secretary of Treasury knows all about them. So if you want to ask someone some questions, he's the man to write to. You might have to try a little waterboarding to get the answers out of him. Now, we are going to take control of that trust, because you are the only contributing beneficiary. In other words, you are the only person that puts anything into that account of any substance. Of course, when you're on the dole, or when you're claiming unemployment benefit, that is where the money comes from this account. Now, one person I highly recommend that you look at is a chap called Winston Shrout, and he has a website called solutionsincommerce.com. I'll put a link up for you. I found his information to be very accessible and very clear and articulate. Now, there's also another chap that I recommend you listen to, and he is Sam Kennedy, and I believe he broadcasts on the Republican Radio Network, or the We the People Radio Network. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll find out and put a link up for you. Both of these gentlemen add the caveat to their material that it is for entertainment and educational purposes only, for obvious reasons. Only solicitors and lawyers are licensed by the bar to give legal advice, and they are neither. They're just men who have discovered weak bars in the cage and are teaching us how to bend them in order to achieve the freedom we desire. Now, if you haven't figured it out just yet, I'm not a lawyer either. I'm not giving you legal advice. So going to the government and saying the anti-terrorist told me to say this is only going to get you in that 6 by 6 foot cell with Big Jake, playing mummy, probably. To make the redemption process work for you, you would need to acquire a basic working knowledge of Uniform Commercial Code and create a contract between yourself and your strawman, a security agreement if you like. It also involves creating a bond using your birth certificate and using the accepted for value process. Then you would create a private indemnity bond based on that birth certificate bond, and it goes on from there. It would be foolhardy of me to say much more than that at this point, but do not be put off by the fact that we're talking about Uniform Commercial Code or financing statements. The information is presented in a very accessible way, and it is easy enough to get a grasp of once you tune in to the subject matter. Now, if you want to do some homework, if you're living in the United Kingdom, you could look for the British equivalent, for instance, of the UCC1 financing statement, or perhaps the equivalent of the 1099 OID form they have in the States. And that will lead you to further discoveries, and hopefully you'll keep in touch with me as you make them. I'm always open to conversations on this subject, but please don't ask me questions on how to go about this process. As I've said, I'm not in a position to give that information to you. Now, the freeman route and the redemption route are not mutually exclusive. they can be combined into a very powerful tool. Dr. Sam Kennedy, for instance, operates as a sovereign, but then comes into and plays around with commerce whenever he wants to. Once you get a good understanding of both methods, you could see how they would click into place and fit together quite nicely, effectively allowing you to check in and out of the system at will, a little like Neo in the Matrix, if you like. And that brings me to the third remedy, and it's one that very few people are considering, but I believe it's going to be the only solution possible for our survival in future. And that is the solution that is offered by someone called Arthur Christian, and his website is called loveforlife.au. And what he proposes is that we start creating new communities and just checking out the system altogether. What he terms as community immunity would seem to me to be a very plausible and tangible solution to the corporate control we're all suffering under. You can get a good idea of what he's trying to instigate by going to his site and reading some of his documents. Now, by his own admission, he's not a man of few words, and there is a lot of repetition in some of his documents. But I think it's important that you read them and get a sense of what he's trying to achieve, because in my humble opinion, it's exactly what we need to do. We need to break away from the system and start over. How does that grab you? A fresh start. None of this police state nonsense. None of this corrupt government nonsense. I don't know, it sounds pretty good to me. If I were you, I'd go and have a look at the site and form your own opinion. Is it madness? Is it really? Surely it's got to be better than what we're living through right now. Leaders chosen without your consent, being forced into massive unions by stealth politics, governments spending money that's not theirs, governments using your sweat equity to fund wars. We really do need a fresh start. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm open to those emails. See, what I like about this solution is that it's based in fact. It's based in substance. The previous two solutions are all very well, but you're dealing in the world of fiction. Even with a free man route, you're having to write letters to a legal fiction every time you want to claim a right. Every time you have an infraction with the system, every time the copper pulls you over, you're going to have to write a letter to some fictional entity to complain about what the policeman has done to you. When you capture your strawman, you're going to have to fill in a UCC1 financing statement. You're going to have to write out bonds. You're going to have to send all of your receipts via the 1099 OID form to claim your money back. It's all fiction. It's all nonsense. None of it exists in reality. All that is real is people interacting with each other, contracting with each other, without the state getting involved at every turn, licensing everything we do. When you're dealing in fiction, you're taking a risk because they know more about the fiction than you do. They created the language, they created the law, and they know the rules, and they speak with forked tongues so that you can't understand what they're talking about in courtrooms. They hold all the aces, and you're playing with twos and threes, and you're having to bluff your way through the whole card game, surviving day to day, living hand to mouth. Is that really freedom? Is that really what you want? Now, if I were you, I would go and explore this site and think about the possibility of doing something like that in this country, or where you are. I'm just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Just taking some time out to do a little housekeeping here, answer a few questions. I am very, very honoured and grateful for your offers of donations, but for obvious reasons I cannot accept them. If you want to spend some money, go to the mercantile shop that one of my subscribers has set up. She's a lovely old girl, and she set up a little shop there with Zazzle, and she's using artwork that some of my other subscribers have donated. You can buy cups and t-shirts and whatnot, and it will go to her local whatever it is. And effectively it means that you will have something to show for your donation. But again, I want to thank you very much for making that offer to me. I appreciate it very much. Another question that's coming in more and more frequently these days is, where can you get a black balaclava and sunglasses like these? Well, the answer is I don't know. I don't know where you can get a black balaclava, but I'm pretty sure it's a fairly standard item. The sunglasses are made by Silhouette. Now, don't you lot turn up outside Washington wearing this stuff. You'll have my YouTube channel closed down faster than I can blink. But I appreciate the sentiment, and I hope you'll stay tuned. Thanks for listening.